So today on the Vinyl Guide, we've got a special guest, Chris Robinson, who many of you know from his work with the Black Crowes, and most recently, the Chris Robinson Brotherhood. Chris is a musician, a songwriter, and an avid record collector. Chris, you've had an incredible life. You've paid your dues, you've had incredible success, your music is celebrated worldwide, you've made a great living doing what you love, you've made love to some of the world's most beautiful women, you've shared the stage with rock royalty, and now you're talking to me. Where exactly did your life go wrong?
Yeah, really. And trust me. If I had, gotten up a little earlier and been graded a little more fairly, who knows where my life could have ended up.
There's still time to turn it around. That's fine.
Yeah. So thank you.
So I understand you are quite an avid record collector. When was the last time you were in a record shop?
Where are we? Minneapolis. I wasn't in one today, but still early days. 2 days ago, where were we? And oh my God. Oh, Omaha, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a mint condition Big John Patton, Let 'Em Roll. No, Along Came John, and then I bought a really, really nice copy of Amandul's second album. That's all I bought. Then I'd had enough of that place. I was like, I've seen what you've had here. I'm just leaving.
So when you get off a tour, I mean, you leave your home for weeks and months at a time. When you get home, do you have like a road case that's just dedicated to all the vinyl you picked up on the road?
Well, usually, I come home a lot, so I'm in and out, and we usually hit the West Coast more than once. So what I'll do is, whenever I'm close to Marin, we live in Marin County. Whenever I'm close, I'll just drop off
a satchel,
drop off a stack, and then kind of start over, and I mean, for a while it's a little hazardous just because, like anyone's, just because it's my obsession doesn't mean that everyone else's. And my wife didn't really understand it for a long time, and so they'd be hiding records, or she'd be like, "How come the piles get bigger every few weeks?" I'm like, "I don't know. They're like rabbits, I guess. I don't know." But it's true. I mean, my parents had a lot of records, and I think that was a little bit unique. I mean, I've read somewhere like the average person at that era only had about 3 or 4 records in their collection. And then like an avid record collector would have, 20 or 30 records. My parents probably had a couple hundred records, so I was really lucky that way.
Was their collection eclectic? Was it spanned a lot of genres?
Yeah, completely. My father was a musician, and he was, by the time, he had kind of hung it up by the time we came along, but I mean, there was everything from folk, blues, jazz, giant truck sounds. We did have everything, world music, I think that was like the best part of being a kid, was just having a giant record collection to dig through, like other kids didn't care. Or no one else, or my parents didn't even really care either, in a strange way. You know what I mean? I was like, they didn't really pick on why I'm listening to all this old stuff. But, I found a lot of magic in those old records, and I found a lot of understanding, and I found a lot of, I found a lot of imagination and a lot of stuff that I'll be forever indebted to, because, growing up, adolescence is hard for everyone,
When you think about that time and listening to your parents' records, what are 1 or 2 titles that you just keep going to say, wow, that really helped shape my brain?
Well, let's see. I would say, definitely Mad Dogs and Englishmen, Joe Cocker and Leon Russell, like that record. Dance to the Music, Flying the Family Stone. But then I had all this other stuff, like my dad's folk records, the Greenbrier Boys, and Joan Baez, Bob Dylan records. I mean, that's when I heard my first Bob Dylan records. And mean, that's still Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, the Stanley Brothers, Jimmy Driftwood, but also Mose Allison and Jimmy Reed. Lots of cool, you know what I mean? Lots of stuff like that would be my memories, you know.
When you're going through a record pile now and you stop and you see one of those records that you had in your youth, does it make you pause? Does it bring back those memories?
Not really, because any of those records I wanted, I still have some of those records, you know. The Alan Lomax Sounds of the South record, hugely important record. But it's weird, you know, even it kind of also set my interests have always been eclectic and my collection's always been eclectic. But I think it also, the way my dad curated his collection was really kind of, you know, he was a really opinionated folkie, you know. Yeah, he was one of those, they were folk rules. But I kind of like inherited some of that in some of my interests, you know, like in terms of like, oh, you know, just never really been a tourist, you know. I've always kind of been more of a connoisseur, I suppose.
Would he share his opinion with you? Like, son, this is good, this isn't so good.
Yeah, it would never really be that tame or anything. He would just say that, you know, when I was older and like stuff like the Byrds and stuff, he would just say, well, I was like an idiot for liking that music. You know what I mean? Like, you're an idiot, that music's horrible, you know? So, he was, yeah, he was always quick with an opinion. But, you know, like I was saying about it taking me back, like, it's funny, music, even older music, it doesn't matter when it was recorded, music alone opens up some sort of channel to me that allows entrance into the present, you know? So I don't really have nostalgic feelings towards music, which is funny.
Okay. It's not a time machine for you.
Like I don't hear it. Yeah. I don't hear it. So I go, oh, that was the best summer ever. It's not like that. I don't live like that. I make music. Music's a thing that's alive, you know, and listening to music, you should be present and be alive with it in the same way, you know? So it all kind of, you know, bubbles into one big organic thing, you know?
But it doesn't bring you back flashes of memory? Like, for me, I'll be listening to a song. It doesn't even have to be an old song. It could be a song sometime in my past. And I'll remember an intersection or something that was happening the last time I heard that. And that's the power of music for me anyway. Does it do that for you, or it's a completely different experience?
Yeah, I don't really have the same, you know, it doesn't really seem the same to me, you know, but I'm not thinking in those terms usually, you know, like, I don't know, it's weird.
Oh, okay.
And then to be making music for a long time, like I said, it all kind of is bundled up into one big yarn, you know.
So from the records that you had in your youth, that stack, your dad's collection, your mom and dad's collection, does that still exist somewhere? Do you have that or part of that?
Yeah, I still have lots of records from that. I mean, I still have the Alan Lomax box set that was my father's. Still have, like, you know, Gene Ritchie records and New Lost City Ramblers, all sorts of stuff that I've kept. I still have my, you know, those first edition Prestige Mose Allison records and stuff like that. Yeah, definitely.
So you grew up in Atlanta, and in that section of the country, I suppose you got exposed to a lot of Stax, a lot of Southern soul. Was that part of the basis for some of the music you guys made? I mean, were you listening to Otis Redding and inspired by folks like that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, Otis Redding, if you were growing up, I grew up in the 80s, so it was oldies music by then, you know, for people. But when you grow up in the South and if music's in your, you know, conscious mind, then yeah, most of the forms of music or forms of expression that make up rock and roll all come from that place. Whether they be, you know, blues giving birth to jazz, folk music, country music, gospel music, you know, and then jazz, rock and roll, R&B, funk. I mean, all of it is kind of gets its seeds with Southern music, you know. But yeah, you know, I mean, you have to have your ear attuned to it. You know, it has to mean something to you. It has to speak to you in a certain way. You know what I'm saying? I think for it to become something that's, you know, that's fuel for you or energy, you know. Well, it's also a nice way. I mean, the same thing with collecting records, the same thing as being a musician. It should be a humbling experience to recognize the amount of talent and the amount of vision and commitment and soul that people have put into their music. Whether they made these, you know, record companies lots of money or not, you know. So it's kind of, you know, like I said, just people making music, people recording, you know, it's always been going on in some form or other, you know, in a way.
How many hours a day do you spend listening to music?
I don't know. It's hard to say, really. I mean, on the road, we just have record. We have record, you know, we have turntable on the bus, and most of us all collect vinyl, so there's rarely any place to sit. So you just have a cup of tea, and we listen to records till when we wake up to when we go to sleep. I mean, when we're not, I mean, while we're on the bus, we don't watch TV. You know what I mean? We don't. So it's either playing music and that part of it, or, you know, if you're on the bus, whether you like it or not, you're listening to records. You know?
Yeah. Is it an intense focus, or is it just kind of on while people are going about their business?
It's both. It's always the same. You know, sometimes you intensely listen to something, and sometimes it's just your vibes. You know.
And your bandmates, they bring in new music all the time, introduce new things that you may not be familiar with. What are some of the more recent discoveries you made through that channel?
Let's see. Oh, my word. I don't know, the multitude of stuff that comes around. I don't know. That's hard to say. I mean, last week I'm the one ended up giving records to Adam and stuff.
Do you buy records for other people? You're like a prescription. Like, here, you need to listen to.
Yeah, of course,
Miles
of course.
Davis.
Well, there's some records that are essential, and if you see them and they're a little bit rare, you know, you buy them and you give them to somebody because hey, you need this record. You know.
What's an example of a record that you have a hard time passing up when you see it for sale?
Well, like Paul Sibel, Jackknife Gypsy, or like the first Grease Band record I saw the other day, like a really nice copy, or any Gene Clark record, stuff like, you know what I mean? There's lots of stuff, you know, that you're just like, oh, someone has to have this, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I know what I bought him. I bought him the first Colin Blunstone solo record, and like we listened to it before we crashed the other night. It was like, bingo. Like, I hadn't even listened to that record in a couple of years, so it was awesome, you know.
And how large is your personal record collection?
I think it's probably, I mean, about 4,000 or 5,000 records. We moved about 18 months ago, so I don't really know what the last couple of years entail. You know what I mean? Like, there's a couple of like months of records that have kind of, you know, I gotta get them organized. But I would probably say, I mean, I've safely 4,000, 5,000 records. I used to have more, you know. I had to make some room.
Is there like different piles? Is there different piles? There's like the A pile upstairs and the other pile that.
Well, I have some. I DJ, you know, and I have my own show on Sirius Satellite Radio. It's called Gurus Galore, where I play a lot of obscure stuff from my collection, mostly kind of deep psychedelic tracks and whatnot. But yeah, you know, I kind of try to keep it genre specific. But then I also, you know, like, I'm not really allowed to play the third ear band in the house or anything. So
there's parameters.
Yeah, exactly.
Your family, your kids work the record player. Do you encourage that? Do they actively participate in that process?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they can kind of care less, you know what I mean, in a way. Like, old records are weird to them, you know, but then they're used to it because they've grown up with dad, like, playing records all weekend long or whatever, you know, or when I'm home or when we're eating or whatever. So
music is just a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I think they like it, you know, but then again, it doesn't, you know, I don't it's the same thing with playing music. I don't force them to do anything. They don't, you know what I mean? Like, I play music, you have to, or I love this and you should. It's, you know, life's not like that. So, I mean, they like what they like, you know what I mean? Like, if so, you know, my daughter seems to be a little more, you know, fluid with her taste. My son likes like kind of harder stuff, you know.
Do you come home with stuff like, especially for them? Like, will you buy her a Katy Perry record? Here, honey, you know, this is for you.
No, never. I'm music's serious in our house, and if my kids want to listen to, you know, stuff like that, they can do that in their rooms, or they could do that somewhere else. I mean, I'm not gonna be like really weird about it, but you know, music's a gift, and music almost carries like a spiritual connotation in our lives. And if my kids want to, you know, they're children. If they want to listen to that, they can do it on their own time. You know, I don't like. I mean, I don't care. I don't like it in the car or anything. It makes me feel bad. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of music is, to me, I get why, you know, people are allowed to like whatever they like, but that kind of stuff just brings me down. So I don't want to hear it. You know.
Like, what does it bring out in you?
Well, if I go to Rome and a friend of mine who lives in Rome takes me to a back alley and takes me to one of the best meals of my life, it's going to be a little different than the Olive Garden. You know what I mean? And records like that are the Olive Garden. And like I said, so you can make a choice to go do that. I want a little more out of my experience while I'm here, you know, and that's, I think, you know, the basis of kind of being more of a connoisseur and take a little more time and focus with the things that could, you know, but then again, I'm not really that interested in commercial things or commercial music or corporate music either. So
when you play your records, do you methodically put them away, or are they kind of scattered all over the place after an evening of music and wine?
Yeah, they're pretty scattered all over after a while. I mean, I usually have a pile of a few hundred records by the record player that's whatever I'm kind of into at that point, and then eventually I'll like transfer them somewhere because I don't have all my records out, you know. So then eventually I'll take that pile and change it with another like 50 or 60 records and start over, you know.
Rotate. What was the
or
last...
whatever new records, you know.
Yeah. What was the last record you broke or damaged?
I don't know. It's been a long time. When I was a kid, I had my dogs had these English bulldogs, and they ate a bunch of my records, believe it or not.
Really? They like just chewed, or they full on ate?
No, they ate chunks they bit off the ends of these records. Like they ate some of it. It's amazing.
All right, I haven't heard that one before. But when you're out on the road and you guys are on a bus with a bunch of records all over the place, no accidents, or everybody's very wary of where they place them?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, everyone collects records too. So I don't see how they could get too, leave them outside or anything.
Do you have a completist approach? Like, will you buy an album from an artist that you like the artist, but the album is not that great, but you'll get it just to complete the set?
I've done it for some things. I mean, depending on the circumstance and the label and not too often, I listen to records, so if it's not a good record, I don't really have to have it. But, like I said, I probably got rid of 1,500 records the last few years just to make room for, for where my head is as I, move into another decade of collecting music,
If we go back a little bit into your earlier years of your career, those records that you had with your parents, they inspired you to start to move into musical direction. And then you formed the band, you toured years and years. What was the first record that you guys were on, 7-inch or 12-inch?
First record that we made was Shake Your Moneymaker, our first album.
That was the very first. There were no singles before that or anything?
No, we went straight to that. But I mean, we had 24 months of our lives to get ready for that record. That's when I dropped out of school. tried to, attempted to go to university for a year or so, and then I dropped out and decided I was never going to look back, really. And then that was it.
And you guys were on the live circuit, and you came to the attention of Rick Rubin at Deaf American.
Well, Rick didn't really know anything about us. Rick inevitably signed us, but no, we were signed by a guy named George DeCoulias, who signed us and produced our first record.
Okay.
Yeah, Rick Rubin has never really had anything to do with that band. So it's pretty funny, except make a lot of money.
Cash the check.
That going on.
So there's an interesting story, or it's a rumor, I don't know, maybe you can confirm it, about the same time Shake Your Money Maker was coming out, and it was almost diverted because of the album from the Ghetto Boys.
Because of what?
The album from the Ghetto Boys?
I have no idea. I don't think the Ghetto Boys came out till way after our first album, but I don't know. I could have, like I said, to me, Rick Rubin is just as boring as any other businessman. I could care less. You know what I mean? Like, guy never wrote a song or sang one or did anything I'm interested in. So.
He seems to be pretty good at gluing stuff together.
I don't know. I mean, if you'd say so. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't care. He's not on my recognition of things that are important, Who
were some people that were really important to you the early part of your career?
Well, I mean, George DeCoulias. I mean, he's the person that took a chance, Like, it's funny. I mean, besides that, it's just you and you guys against the world, really, and until people start, coming and recognizing what you're doing, I mean, it's just really, I hate to say it, but it's like really just hard work, it's just it's your hard work, man. I mean, there was, there's always stuff along the way, but like, as I look back, like the route we took was that route, someone sees you, they make an investment, you make a record, you put your coin into the machine, you pull the thing, and boom, I mean, then the trick is you're 22, 23 years old, and then you realize like, oh, how do then the clever stuff has to start, and you got to figure out what's important to you, what music means to you. Can you fight the storm of all these people who want nothing but what's the base of it all is money and greed, and you're dealing with like these adult people who have been in that scene many times, so it was unique. It was a unique upbringing, to say the least.
It sounds like you guys had your confidence early on, not just the way the music comes out, but you guys want the record to sound this way. You don't want corporate sponsorship for a live show. Right. You want to put out an album with the cover that you want. You seem to have found your voice very early, and that probably made you a bit of a irritant to the record companies. But it really was the basis of you guys and your decisions in your band. You were very protective of that.
Yeah, but you have to realize we live in an era where people want to be famous and make money. I wanted to be in a rock and roll band, and I wanted to get in there and see what kind of magic we could muster within that kind of energy. You know what I mean? And so be it if the turn of the wheel of circumstance gave us huge commercial success, right? So then then that's on your plate. But I mean, and within the whole thing was sort of my fearless naivete about the power of the muse and the power of the song and the power of the connection you can make, because I felt those things, and that's what motivated me to even attempt to write a song or sing it or any of it, comes from someplace that has to be motivated other than idol worship or having an easy life, because those things don't exist no matter who you are or how successful you are, no matter what you do. you know?
And it just seems to have stuck true. I mean, throughout the whole career, the decisions have been based on, what's best for the music, not what's best for our image.
Well, it's definitely not made it any easier on some levels. You know what I mean? Like, which is kind of funny.
If you're lucky enough, some people can get on the conveyor belt, but it takes somebody, of a different level to make their own conveyor belt.
Well, my kind of thing, it wasn't, it can be construed any way you want. And when you're young, you have to have a certain level of arrogance because no one's listening to you. No one's taking you seriously or whatever. And that's the only way to protect yourself. But at the end of the day, was there any other way? The people that influenced me the most on and art, not just music. It could be any creative person. They were always the people that could sort of buck the system. I mean, wasn't that the whole point? Isn't that why I accepted this commitment to the muse, and the muse accepted me? You know what I mean? And almost a religious devotion. Music's never hassled me, man. Like I can't say that about a lot of other stuff. I mean, and to be able to, to have the freedom in the year 2016 or in 1987 or any year to sort of live by my creative wits and let my daydreams come to pass. I mean, that's again, I've said it before, it's a unique experience, and one that frankly I could never take for granted or put a price tag on.
Lions and Live at the Greek, I believe they were among the first LPs for online streaming. This is mid-90s, late 90s. This is at a time when most artists and record companies were running away from streaming music. What made you guys run towards it?
I mean, I think at the time, it was like the cutting edge thing. I mean, I'm not really interested in technology. I mean, I'm not really interested in the business in no sense, but if the opportunity arises to be at the vanguard, I mean, especially with a project like that, then I think it would be beneficial, just because I drive to work in a covered wagon doesn't mean everybody does, So, yeah, I mean, those type of things are, I don't know. I don't even really probably remember. That's probably a group vote. You know what I mean?
Well, that's again, that was a pretty brave decision in the face of what was happening at the time.
Well, I think anyone whose careers are more entwined with a live life, with touring on the road and that kind of, anybody who lives like that is going to have a different understanding, I think, as opposed to, people who make their livings by, selling records. I mean, not that people don't even do that anymore. You know what I mean?
How did you guys, or how did you as an individual or the group decide things with so much pressure from record label folks and management who obviously can have other interests in mind?
Fighting and depression. And that's why that band, is amazing that we made as many records and did anything. Because that's how we dealt with it. Drugs, alcohol, fighting, depression.
The major food groups. That's
it. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, like I said, I wish it wasn't so, but that's, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
And one last question about the old band. How does one become involved with Jimmy Page to the level that you guys did? Did he make the call? Did you make the call? How did that come together?
Well, I mean, we knew him, there weren't a lot of bands that came along when we did that were interested in blues or interested in some of this music or interested in or had that kind of success. I mean, it comes with success as well, and having and like I said, I think having an understanding of blues music and roots music and soul music and things that Jimmy, was always influenced by, besides just, the rock and roll and stuff. And we always had a good time together. So, I mean, that's always lowest common.
Do you ever trash a hotel room with him?
No.
Ah, okay. Just one for old time's sake.
We were all far too old for that, even 16 years ago.
So you have evolved. You've moved on to the Chris Robinson Brotherhood. What does the Chris Robinson Brotherhood mean to you at this point in your career?
It means freedom. It's the freedom to not give up, freedom not to become a slave to the commercial aspect of my career. Not that I don't appreciate it and have great respect for that, but it's also, one the thing in life that probably made me unhealthy and unhappy was having to, I got into music because I'm unemployable on a certain level. That's why, being a songwriter, being a musician and a performer, being a troubadour and a drifter, a traveling rogue, it fit me better, so I got into it because out of more necessity in a weird way than pure anything else. Like these are my people. This speaks to me, So in terms of that, it is. So you cast your fate to the wind like anyone else.
And the band really has a very unique sound. In terms of the songwriting, are there key songwriters within the group, or is it a collaborative effort?
Well, I write the majority of the material. I would say I'm like the verse chorus person. But our last record, Adam and I wrote Narcissus Soaking Wet. Tony has some composition credits. Neil and I have been writing since we started. So, even though I kind of provide the meat of the matter, everyone kind of joins in, if there's a good middle eight or just musical ideas, segues, and it could be any little, Baroque, decorative, aspect. It's really wide open, and that's what it's about, we have full reign to paint our train whatever color we want it to be, and whatever we want it to look like. And that can change nightly, it can change daily, it can change weekly, So it's it's the freedom to, kind of just be where you want to be with your expression,
And in terms of the amount of work you guys have put out in the last few years is quite interesting. Your first album was actually 2 albums. What was that decision like?
Right. Well, we had all the material, and again, we don't, we're fiscally responsible with our budget. And if you make one record for one budget and you end up having 2, and we don't have great overhead, we don't have great expectations in any commercial sense. We don't have to be precious with our recordings. You know what I mean? We don't have to, I'm not paying the CRB is not paying the bills for an entire label like the Black Crowes used to. So again, right then and there, our only, the only achievement we really stand to make is a creative one and a soulful one. So if we're here and like I said, I think the art of it, and, if you can pay for the records, then it's not a big deal. Like I said, I'm not trying to sell millions of records. We're just happy that we get to make records in general. So where we are in terms of our scale, we can, I did the same thing this year, really. We have another album coming out in November. Well, it's 5 songs. Let's see, 5 other songs from the session that we didn't end up using. So we have the freedom again. It's another thing of, not only just having my own label with Silver Arrow, but having the freedom to, do creative things with our releases, not have to be bogged down by any sort of corporate bureaucracy and stuff,
Not have to wait until there's 40 minutes to package that multiple people have stamped it for approval. You put it out when you want to put it out.
And we put out what we want to put out. Exactly. I mean, I get that, but I don't want to work. I want to work for myself. I mean, this is an independent spirited thing. So why would I, I've never been that person. I'm not going to change now, I know. So it's good. I mean, I'm surrounded by, a group of people who all believe in the same stuff, who all have limitless energy to the, creative experiment that we've started,
The camaraderie that you have right now, does that take you back to the very early days when it was kind of all for one for all?
Not really, because it was, again, so different. My brother and I were always at odds in that band, and we didn't really have a time for it to be one for all. We had a lot of time to hold on for dear life, because that band was a rocket machine shot out of a cannon, I have 20 something years of experience and trials and tribulations to call upon in times of need and confusion, so it's a different perspective, but
how have you changed as a person?
Well, I think, I think like anyone else, it's about trying to deal with fear, and I think there was many years ago where I just kind of started to let all that stuff sort of go, and I'm not you know what I mean? Like, again, I'm not afraid to look at art or look at music in my life and to do it this way. Fear would be making decisions solely based on money. I have a family, I have a wife, I have children. They like nice things. We want security. But they also know Dad's an artist, and what makes me happy is being involved in the multi-dimensional reality that's this life. So sitting around wasting my energy and wasting my creative seed, if you will, on something that's nothing but a temple to commerce is boring, and I'm not going to do it. And it's fine if other people can, if they can quantify, find that to be okay, if that's where their commitments are. That's cool. I'm going to be around people who are a little more demanding, maybe, with what they want to do with their time.
Do you like working with people that creatively stretch you, maybe even push you?
Yeah, but I've rarely found that I'm in a place where I'm lacking that, to be honest with you.
What do you look for in a collaborative community?
Well, I mean, in terms of songwriting, I mean, for us, it's just about having the same, being able to, everyone to jump into the same mind, everyone to jump into the same set of ears in a way, and be intuitive, and it's about intuition. It's not about anything else. I mean, for me, and if everyone can, it's a great conversation and a great dinner party. You know what I mean? You get together with your favorite people and have a hilarious, provoking, meaningful, soulful, you know what I mean? You can have these kind of nights of conversations with people. Well, we can have those musically too, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for someone who's an erudite thinker at a great dinner party, and that's what it is, to be able, you have the architecture of your songs, and you have what's built in like that, and the melody and the poetry and the rhythmic thing. And then luckily for us, we have a whole nother aspect of our lives where we can improvise, So to be able to do that too, everyone has to have their ears open, you have to be able to listen. You have to be able to, it's a dance.
So when you come to band rehearsal or the studio with a song already somewhat structured, it's kind of in your head, maybe 60 or 70% of what it's going to sound like, the verse chorus bit. How open are you to different ideas on those parts?
Well, usually those are the parts I brought in, aren't the parts that we need. If I have a part and everyone likes it, then that's it. That's what it is. It's if someone has another part, then they're writing another song. So, but it's definitely more about if someone has a great part and then someone writes another piece to that, it's not I do it out of because that's what I do. That's why I started this band. I write songs, and I can't record them in the Black Crowes, and I couldn't do this in the Black Crowes, and I couldn't do that, and we couldn't. No one wanted to do this. So, you know what I mean? So this whole band is born out of that. You know, here I am. I'm still writing songs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do we do with them? But to have a collaborative effort and have other people, you know, jump on board is incredible. And yeah, I mean, I always needed the band dynamic. I think, you know, it's the best to have other people, to have that, you know, like I said, to have that community. Of course, and you're not all on your lonesome.
Right. And it's good when you have something that 1 + 1 + 1 = 5. That's what you're trying to achieve.
Exactly.
With the latest album, Any Way You Love, We Know How You Feel, how have you matured as an artist since the previous albums?
Well, I mean, I think it has to do, some of it with just the hours put in, you know, like 110 shows a year we average. That's 3 hours a night. You know, having Tony in the band for a full solid 100-something shows before we went in the studio. That, you know, I mean, like I said, making records it's fairly easy stuff. You know, you have your best compositions, you try to dial up your coolest vibes, and you go for the best performance you can at that time. And if everyone is, you know, like I said, if everyone is available for that, then you just really strike when the iron's hot. You know what I mean? I mean, I've never been on a session where if I didn't play it 2 or 3 times and you didn't get it, that you're going to get it any better playing it 800 times. Maybe you go back to it or whatever, but it's, you know, like, I mean, part of the allure of music, and again, like I say, the magic is the spontaneity and when things just happen, you know.
So in terms of the new album, you're more open to that sort of influence, more time on the road, more congealing as a group?
That's just different, you know, like every place is different. You know, we had a producer, we produced this ourselves. The material changes, you know, it's like anything else. It's a progression, you know, I mean, I guess the only cause of real, you know, concern is if something stops progressing and something goes backwards, you know. But, you know, every time we turn over another stone, you know, we find another little weird, you know, semi-aquatic creature flopping around in there. You know, ooh, what's this? You know, so I'm going to keep turning them over, you know.
And yeah, the band has developed a really solid following. You guys are playing, you know, bigger and bigger spots now, really blossoming in that regard. When people come to the shows, you have some thoughts around the ability for concert goers to tape the concerts, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I was that way with it since we first started. I mean, if you want to take the trouble to come and record the show, that it's never going to be the same again, I think you should. I mean, that doesn't mean you should sit there with your cell phone out like a total, you know, dumbass, you know, ruining the time for everyone around you and usually the band. But yeah, if you're a sonic person and you want to get in there and set up your mics and be a part of it in that way, I'm all for it.
Yeah, because there seems to be a very strange edge to ride, whether you're going to record the show or, like you say, annoy people around you.
Well, it's different to hold out your cell phone when you're in the, you know, and to hold it there for a whole song. To me, first off, you look like an idiot. And secondly, you're missing the whole point of what we're doing energy-wise as people. And thirdly, you're probably ruining the time around everyone around you who's not selfishly like a child with a new toy showing it to everyone. I mean, really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. At the end of the day, it's my one pet peeve that I just see people do, and I'm like, it's just so rude and just sophomoric.
And fourthly, they'll probably never watch the video anyway.
Exactly. Like, what's the big deal, you know?
Does the Chris Robinson Brotherhood make their recordings available online after a show?
We do. We put up whatever shows that we like, and which, you know, if there's shows that don't go up are usually because of some sort of technical issue or something happened. But yeah, all of our, you know, our in-house engineer, the Raven. They're called Ravens Reels. You can follow them on our Facebook, like which ones are available, or nugs.net, I think, or nugs.com is the service that they stream live shows, and you can buy whatever show is available as well.
All right. Well, we'll make sure we post those URLs as well. So, Chris, thanks very much for spending your time with us. I know you got a show tonight, and want to let you get to sound check and everything. After this show, what are some record shops you are looking forward to hitting on your way back to California?
Oh my word! I don't know. We just hit Cleveland, which is awesome. I'll be in Asheville and Raleigh. There's a couple good record stores in that area. So, yeah, I mean, it's good.
What are some of the holy grail records you're still looking for?
Oh my word! Roy Harper, Stormcock, original. Clive's original bands, first 2 records, original. Oh God, I don't know. There's lots of stuff. Cosmic Jokers records, Ashra Temple records, all sorts of weird krautrock stuff and psych stuff. Yeah.
I guess it's safe to assume that there's no end point. This will just continue on until you are no more. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't even consider it a hobby. I mean, my library is equally as extensive, and I don't plan on stop reading anytime soon. I don't plan on stop enjoying cinema, or you know what I mean. Like it's a way to stay awake through the bizarre trance-like world that you're given in these days. Some places.
That's a great quote, Chris. Thank you very much for spending time with us. We do appreciate it.
Right on, man. Have a good one.
Okay, you too. Cheers, man.
Cheers.